In the summer of 2016, we had an urgent need to protect the integrity of an American presidential election from a hostile foreign power determined to weaken and divide the United States of America. This investigation is not politically motivated. It is not a witch hunt. It is not a hoax.
An explosive hearing, to say the least, just ended on Capitol Hill. Disgraced FBI agent Peter Strzok dueling with lawmakers for hours as they probe him about his handling of the Trump-Russia investigation big time. His text to his then lover, Lisa Page, and possible bias at the FBI.
OMG, he's an idiot. Hi, how was Trump other than a douche? Melania? Trump is a disaster. I have no idea how destabilizing his presidency would be.
Before he ever began investigating alleged collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia, he'd already made up his mind that President Trump would be destabilizing for the country. I mean, think about how serious that word is, Sean. Destabilizing for our country, and he hadn't even begun to interview the first person. You're 8 days into your Russian collusion with the Trump campaign investigation, and you got another text from your colleague, Lisa Page. Trump's not ever going to become president, right? Right? And you replied, no. No, he's not. We'll stop it.
What I can tell you is that text in no way suggested that I or the FBI would take any action to influence the candidacy of
Agent
candidate
Strzok,
Trump.
that is a fantastic answer to a question nobody asked. It was the existence of your bias that got you kicked off.
No, Mr. Gowdy, it wasn't. I do not have bias. It is not my understanding that he kicked me off because of any bias, that it was done based on the appearance. If you want to represent what you said accurately, I'm happy to answer that question, but I don't appreciate what was originally said being changed.
I don't give a damn what you appreciate, Agent Strzok. I don't appreciate having an FBI agent with an unprecedented level of animus working on 2 major investigations during 2016.
One of the big lies we heard today was that this was all personal. Look, Ryan, we wouldn't be getting these text messages and these emails if they were personal by law. The reason we're seeing them is because they're government emails about government activity.
Right.
Anyone who says it's personal political beliefs, if that were the case, we wouldn't be seeing them.
Basically, the overview. Peter Strzok says, yeah, I wrote those things. I'm allowed to write those things. Right. I shouldn't have wrote those things, but it didn't affect the investigation. We don't know yet what happened with the Russia investigation, but in terms of the Hillary Clinton investigation, is he right? Is there any proof of bias in the way he went about this?
I think that he made overly broad statements about the findings of the Justice Department Inspector General. The Justice Department Inspector General, in fact, found that when you get to sort of August of 2016, when there's that text message about stopping Trump, that was the point at which the Inspector General said, whoa, like we have changed from expressing an anti-Trump sentiment to talking about taking some kind of action.
What does Trump support smell like, Mr. Strzok?
Sir, that's an expression of speech. I clearly wasn't smelling one thing or the other. What I meant by that was living in Northern Virginia, having traveled 100 and 150 miles south within the same state, I was struck by the extraordinary difference in the expression of political opinion and belief amongst the community there.
And you described that as smell in capital letters.
Sir, that was a choice of the quick choice of words.
How many interviews did you conduct related to the alleged collusion between Russia and the Trump campaign?
The special counsel's equities has instructed me not to answer questions about the ongoing investigation.
I'm asking.
Did you know that he was meeting with representatives from Fusion, including Glenn Simpson?
I cannot discuss the content of the operational matters.
Metadata shows that you modified the draft statement on June 6th. Is this when the phrase grossly negligent was changed to extremely careless?
Sir, again, I don't recall specifically when it happened.
Was it your computer that put the change in to the statement?
Based on my subsequent review of that metadata, I believe that to be true.
Okay, and who has access to your computer? Anybody beside you?
No, I do. My secretary had access to elements of it.
Nailed.
This isn't just me sitting here telling you, you don't have to take my word for it. At every step, at every investigative decision, there are multiple layers of people above me, the assistant director, executive assistant director, deputy director, and director of the FBI, and multiple layers of people below me, section chiefs, supervisors, unit chiefs, case agents, and analysts, all of whom were involved in all of these decisions. They would not tolerate any improper behavior in me any more than I would tolerate it in them. That is who we are as the FBI. And the suggestion that I, in some dark chamber somewhere in the FBI, would somehow cast aside all of these procedures, all of these safeguards, and somehow be able to do this is astounding to me. It simply couldn't happen. And the proposition that that is going on, that it might occur anywhere in the FBI, deeply corrodes what the FBI is in American society.
This was an incredibly disingenuous answer that he gave about the checks above and below. First of all, we know from Jim Comey that he wasn't involved, and many in the leadership were not involved with the day-to-day investigation decisions here. That's why Peter Strzok was the lead investigator. And on any given day, at any given moment, he would have been and could have been and was making independent decisions that influenced the course of this investigation. So obviously, he had the ability to take actions that wouldn't have been questioned and might have been motivated by bias, most likely were.
James Comey was basically the king in this. He didn't do any of the work. He just took the copy. He was the one with his sleeves rolled up doing the investigating for Hillary Clinton, for Michael Flynn, for doing the investigation on the Russia side, the Anthony Weiner laptop decision to push it forward. Joining us now is Terry Turchi. He's a former deputy assistant at the FBI's counter-terrorism division. He joined us. First off, I got to ask you, does the FBI look bad today, or does Peter Strzok look bad today?
Well, unfortunately, the FBI looks bad because Peter Strzok looks even worse. I thought we might go into today and maybe we could start rebuilding and regaining the trust of the American public as a result of this hearing. It actually got worse. I mean, you see very clearly not just the bias that he took into this case, but what really hurts, and something I never saw in 30 years in the FBI, and that is kind of this disdain and contempt for what I think is the American public in general. I've never seen that in the FBI. I mean, FBI agents, FBI employees usually can get along and be out there and be around everybody. But when you start calling people deplorable and you go into Walmarts and you text messages that people smelled, I mean, he didn't explain any of that. You just can't be that way and be in the FBI. And remember, he's not just any FBI agent. I mean, I know the Democrats on the committee want to make sure people think that, but he's the deputy assistant director, or was, of the counterintelligence division. He had major say in the decisions in the course of these cases. And in fact, he had a major say in everybody working for him and the morale of people and in their own attitudes. You cannot lead and have this attitude, and he can't tell me that he withheld the way he feels about all these things from everybody that worked for him and around him. I just don't buy that.
Well, it was a bit of a circus, and it ought to be only the beginning, frankly, in terms of getting information out of the Justice Department and FBI. I don't understand why the Mueller operation is still going on, given the corruption evidence in these texts that Strzok admitted to. We're not talking about bias here. We're talking about corruption. This is evidence of corruption. An FBI agent, a senior FBI official, wanting to direct an investigation a certain way to target a political opponent. And on top of that, we have Mr. Mueller seemingly disinterested in this corruption. He kept it from the American people for months, he and the Justice Department, that he had to remove Strzok because of this corruption. And if I were Congress, I'd call him in and ask him some questions about how he's managing his investigation and the evidence of bias and corruption with his team. That is still undermining the credibility of the entire Justice Department and FBI he's using to target Trump.
Peter Strzok has a level of bias that would make it impossible for any prosecutor to stand in front of a jury and use him as a witness. On the other hand, while he's convicting Donald Trump before the investigation begins, he's exonerating Hillary Clinton. 100 million to 0 is what the vote ought to be, and he hadn't interviewed her, and he hadn't interviewed 30 other witnesses.
Do we have equal justice under the law? Do we have equal application of our laws?
No, and that's what frustrates people. That's what frustrates your viewers who wonder, well, would that happen to me too? Would the director of the FBI announce my innocence before 20-some-odd interviews have been done, including my own? And keep this in mind too, Sean, they were really clear when they went into her interview she's not going to be charged with anything unless she lies. So the mishandling of classified information, she was never in jeopardy from that, even before they interviewed her. So, look, I think everybody would like that deal, that the FBI is going to come talk to me, and the only thing I got to do is tell the truth. Yes, I robbed the bank. Yes, I kidnapped this person. Yes, I committed bank fraud. All you got to do is tell the truth, and you're going to get out of jail free. Converse that with the fact that Donald Trump, not a single solitary witness had been interviewed before Peter Strzok is promising to stop him from ever becoming president. That is a dichotomy that erodes public trust in our justice system and in our law enforcement. A politicization of law enforcement is the end of us. If we begin to view that blindfolded lady holding a set of scales as really having an R or a D on her breastplate, if that's where we are, then we're finished as a republic. I am proud to be on the House Intel Committee, and we've done some really important work on the FISA abuse. It's been a long slog, and we hadn't had a lot of help at times, but Devin has made really good progress on uncovering what went into that FISA application. So I don't know. I know this. I know that there were lots of things that should have been in that application that was presented to the judge that were not. And I know that they decided not to charge her before they interviewed 30 fact witnesses. So if that is not a dichotomy, that we're going to withhold exculpatory information in this case, and we're going to withhold any prospect of prosecution in that case, I don't know how anyone cannot be left with the conclusion that if your name is Clinton, you're going to be treated differently than if your name is Jones or Smith.
What now? I mean, Hillary Clinton had a rigged investigation. What happens to her, and what happens to the people that were involved in the exoneration before the investigation to impact a presidential election? Never mind lying to 4 FISA judges to get warrants to spy on Americans and opposition party candidate representatives.
Well, Sean, this is where I get myself in a little bit of trouble, because all of the principal decision makers now were put in place by President Trump. Jeff Sessions, Rod Rosenstein, Chris Wray. It's no longer Loretta Lynch and Eric Holder and Jim Comey. I mean, it's our folks. So if they have uncovered systemic abuse or any potential criminality, they have an obligation to prosecute it. My fear is when you have the head of the FBI stand up in front of the entire world and exonerate her the way Jim Comey did, I don't know a prosecutor in the world that is good enough to win that case. So our opportunity to find out whether or not she violated the Espionage Act, I think Jim Comey ruined that. They ruined it by not interviewing her seriously, and then they ruined it by that unprecedented press conference. So we'll never know the answer to your question.